5% American adults under 30 identify as trans. 5% of adults under 30 identify as trans. 5 years ago, it was 0.6%.
What's going on, everybody? Big Matt over here from the podcast. Going to drop a little knowledge on you guys today. Just thought we'd bring this video out. It's something I've went past his podcast a couple of times, and I always enjoyed the topics he's had to share. So let's just dig right into this. And remember, hey, hit the subscribe button if you hadn't already. I go over all kind of topics and subjects from news, usually kind of biblical based. So let's see what Patrick David is talking about. I'll leave a link to his channel down below. I'm just going to do a reaction to this video. So basically he's, I guess you could see there by the percentages that he's given that in today's time, there are more people that are identifying as other things. Okay. And I think there's some confusion. Well, I know there is. And we're going to kind of get into a little bit of the Bible part of it of, being parents, and where do parents, where do they stand on this? And he plays a little clip here from a governor lady from California to give the idea that if you do not allow your child to partake in what they feel like they should do or what they want to do, then you're a bad parent and your child can get taken away from you. So, yeah, I know. So let's dig back over here into it. PBD is the podcast, and it's really good. He's a good, he's a Christian guy. Okay. He's a multi-millionaire, raised up in, I think, Iran. And he's about my age. He's in his mid 40s. So he's been around and he's seen what's going on, and he does a great podcast here. Again, I'll leave a description down below. So let's see what more he has to say here. Then I'm going to skip ahead to a few minutes to get into the main part of kind of what I want to talk about.
Okay. That identified as trans. That's not visibility. This is social contagion of a mental health epidemic. Okay. Vivek is making a lot of sense lately. Do you want to pull up this tweet, Rob, to show this to the audience? Is this a tweet you had here, or was it a video when he said that?
It's a tweet and video.
Oh,
so
let him say it. Play the clip.
We need to end this mental health epidemic, not just with anger. I'm not angry at trans people. I'm not. I'm frustrated with the culture that venerates a mental health illness that we should be treating instead of actually throwing kerosene on and fueling to spread like wildfire across this country. I know you're not supposed to say many of those things out loud, but I just think it's important that we speak truth, because that's got to be the first step towards getting to a solution. And that's what I'm hoping to deliver.
Yeah. So, okay. That's his take on that. And most people probably, he's going to be up and running for president. And I think a lot of people probably feel the way that he's talking there, what he said. Nobody really has an agenda against somebody because of how they choose to live their life sexually. Most of us are honestly just kind of concerned with what your sexuality has to do with any part of my life. Because honestly, I've said it in other parts too, we really just don't care. I don't have a concern about what your sexual preferences are. And in a sports show that we do on Sundays, me and Dean, it really don't have anything to do with sports. Girls have their sports, guys have theirs. However, it's played a role into bringing in the ideas of men competing in girls' sports. And that's unfortunate. And women's rights that they fought for years and years and years have been totally trampled on. So, and that's why I kind of that's why I don't talk about it on the sports show. And I want to do my own channel here so I can keep it separate, because that's what I don't like about ESPNs and those guys, because they do mix those things and how they, just personally feel about things. And when it has nothing to do with sports, just talk about what's going on, give us the games, give us the scores and the stats and the highlights, and we can all talk about it. And that's what a sports show is supposed to be. So, and like he's saying, nobody is bothered with them, but the continuation of their ideology of how they want to live their life has somehow supposed to become important to me. And it's not, as well as their lifestyle, mine of how I live my life, to stand on the rock of Christ and his teachings and to do my best to try to live that way daily. They could care less about me or how I live my life. And I'm not out here, pushing it on anybody, but I'm going to share his word. And I'm glad you come by here today to check this video out. And I hope it just gives some talking points. And these are just conversations that we're going to have. And the main topic of being in parenting, we're going to have to make those decisions as parents, and especially as young parents are going to be coming up. As the youth that I had, years ago at the church, some of them are getting married now. Mine will be 20 here very soon. And these are things that they're going to have to tackle as parents. So as a good parent, I need to be a good parent and pass along this knowledge to him, which I have. And we talk about this kind of stuff some, not all the time, because you don't want to run your life down with just all bad stuff. So, but these are topics that are just they're going to have to be talked about. Unfortunately, it is uncomfortable. And am I saying that I'm the perfect parent? Not at all. But for people that are watching, which is my personal channel, most of you may know my son, and I think most of you could say that he's a good kid, and he's not perfect, and none of us are, and we just have to give them good choices. And I don't feel like, in what we're fixing to get into back over here, I'm not sure that good choices are being given to our kids now, when the choice is being made to be by the kid. How can a child choose to be, what they want to be, when they want to be characters and, just want to be whatever they want to be at the moment. They may wake up that morning and feel like they want to be a dog or a cat, or, I wanted to be Rambo, or I want to be a G.I. Joe man. But it's not factual. It's not realistic, because it's the mind of a child, and the kids play and you have imaginary things, how you play and live in these little worlds that you do. And that's, what fun part of being a kid is. And if anybody remembers Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, if you're at least 40 or older, you would know. And some of you seen the movie. They did a movie about Fred Rogers, and he said, boys are boys, and they're the dads, and girls are girls, and they're the mommies, and they have, the children. And, that kind of stuff is just lacking. And it's just common sense. It's easy to know that, being homosexual is what it is. And to have children, they have to come out of that lifestyle. So that lets you know that it's not logically normal. Okay. So for that decision to be made by a child, and in their thinking of how they feel that day. So I'm going to hit this little clip here. And this lady's a senator, I believe she's from California, and she's talking about this choice of her child, and kind of sort of, pretty much how that, well, if you don't allow your child to do as they want, like DHR or whatever the, child services are going to come get your kid. I think that's some kind of law that they're trying to pass there in California. So let's hit the play button here and watch the rest of that. I just kind of want to lay all that out for you to see kind of what's up and coming and what we're doing here.
Listen to that, play that clip of her.
Affirming a child's gender identity is in their best interest. And it really is, because if you have a 7-year-old who's talking about having a potential to say, being able to articulate that they believe that they are not the same gender as they are biologically, then it should be affirmed. And through care, it should be determined. And that's what we did with our own child. And that would give the ability for a parent who wasn't sure to affirm and get their child the care that they need to make that, so they can begin to articulate that determination.
Mind you, she's doing it.
But by saying and rejecting it in wholesale, then you're essentially rejecting your child. And that is not in the best interest of a child. We should be affirming our children in every possible way and getting them whatever appropriate care they need, whether it's based on their gender,
You wrote the
whether
wrong
it's
book
based
on
on how
parenting.
their studies are in school. It doesn't matter. Our children should be affirmed.
Well, so mind you, Patrick, you guys heard that. Her 7-year-old said either she's a girl, opposite sex, and they're like, we're all in. So that kid, I don't know if it's happened already, is going to get drugs. They're going to be castrated if they're a dude. Like, this is when I'd say it's a freaking war of good and evil. Those people are making the laws and making the decisions. And if you, Pat, if your 7-year-old says, I want to be a girl, and you have to, and you say no, they'll take your kid away. That's what that bill in California is saying. It's unbelievable.
Tom.
Okay. Now, you heard what he said. Now, that's Tom. He there is a guest on his show, and he says later, you know, how, hey, I'm not he don't have any kids, but he's saying, you know, whether I have kids or not, I mean, it's still, you know, common sense to tell you that your child is just that. And should you help them make decisions in life? Absolutely. So, spare the rod and spoil the child. You know, that's actually from a Samuel, some guy, 1600s. He was an Englishman. That's not actually the real, you know, quote Bible quote. You know, in the Bible in Proverbs 13, maybe I think it is, of how we're going to say to, you know, to train your child up and going away. Proverbs 22. I want to get that chapter right now. It's Proverbs. Even in Deuteronomy chapter 6, you know, living by example. And in Joel chapter 1, verses 3, Isaiah 38, make known what God has done and discipline by word and deed. Proverbs 29, 15 and 17, and all through Proverbs there. So just sparing the rod and for the child to raise them up as you would have them to go, and for them to know God and to know his word. And actually, you know, the whole identity there of what I wanted to get to, you know, does this mean that she's a bad parent? Does she love her child? I'm sure she does it in her own way. She feels like she's doing the right thing. But to make a bill to make it where all of our children are supposed to do what she thinks is right. Now, I don't know I don't see how any of that would have anything at all, you know, to do with it. But to spare the rod and spoil the child, as I'd said a while ago, is something that this guy had came up with. You know, the original part of the story is if you punish the child with a rod, they will not die. That's the Proverbs 23. A rod and a reprimand imparts wisdom. And so, you know, what I'm getting at there is discipline your child. Now, to spare the rod is, you know, and to keep your child close to them, and you love them and you care for them and you do the right things for them, and you can have them and give them choices. And I think a lot of that context of rod has been taken out of the context of to come to the conclusion that you beat your kids. And that's not what it is. There's the Hebrew word Mayora. It's like, I can't say, I'm not a Hebrew speaker. Maur or somewhat like that. That word rod actually means guidance. Now let's take in a context. So let's talk about that verse there. He's not talking about to beat your kid with a rod. Okay. You got to remember, okay, let's take in complete context of what's going on. And you have to know your group of who you're talking to and the whole time period. Okay. Let's be clear on when this is. Okay. Proverbs, this is way back, which, I mean, they still had shepherd. I mean, they're still shepherd today. So, of the meaning of the rod, a shepherd keeper, he used his rod. You don't beat your sheep with a rod. You use it to herd off bad things, like wolves that try to come in and take your sheep. Are you paying attention now? You also use that rod to bump your sheep as you're walking up with them, and they kind of get off course. You take that stick and can bump them with it. You don't hit them with it, but just get their attention. They feel it. You tap them, you pat them with this rod, and it gets them back on track. Do you see where I'm getting here? So, to spoil your child, and to love them and give them good guidance, with that. And it means that they will die, if not. He's not talking about dies and physical death. It's just like Satan to trick Eve to say, surely you won't die, if you eat from this tree. So we're talking about spiritual death, of not having the forever after. And to acknowledge to your children about who God is and what his laws are and how we're to live them. And it goes on to talk about, if you continue to read in full context, about not just bumping them with a rod to keep them straight, but also that you're doing the right thing. Okay. And you're also living the right way, and you're showing them by doing. Okay. Not to be the one to, come in and drink every day and drink a lot, or do drugs in front of your children, and then, ask them not to drink. Okay. So if you don't want them to drink or be around it, then it's probably best if you don't do it in front of them, and what you do as an adult is your own business. And, you can drink and not be a drunk and, on your own time. And that's not mean you're going to hell. So nobody's judging anybody here. So before I get comments about being judgmental, trust me, I'm not. There's a difference in, to have a drink with a meal or something, or whatever you're doing, and, spending all your time drinking and not spending time with your child. And it takes time away from between you and God and your relationship. And when the drinking or whatever it is comes between you and God, then you're not being a good person to show your child on the way that they should go. If you're trying to lead your child down a spiritual path. Now, are you going to fail as a parent? Absolutely. You fail every day, but you learn from those things, and you know when to use the rod to bump your child, the sheep, as the shepherd did, because that's the context. That's the example that he's using here. The idea of the rod is not to strike your child and beat them down and make them submit into your will. It's to do as I do, okay? And not just only as I say. Because this is what I say as being the head of the house and the man of the house. You're the one to give the rules and stuff and that kind of thing. But, also, you have to do them by showing. And if this lady, I'm not going to get in her parenting style. That's her own business. But, the whole point of this is to show you that the kids do need to be guided along the way. And so I wanted to say, well, what does the Bible say about that? Well, the Proverbs breaks it down pretty easily, and you can talk about it. And this is just to bring up some more conversation and bring some comments into there, and that's fine. And what you like or what you don't like about the video, subscribe to the channel and help me out and help me grow the channel. And, just trying to spread some biblical based knowledge and honesty. Okay. And for young people that are around my son's age, I hope they could stumble across the channel, and, I hope that I can be a good example to them. And, if they're looking for some kind of help or just a word or an encouragement or thing, I hope I can be there and be the person to be for that. Because I enjoy that. And I'm sure that that's what God's put me here for. And these type of things, again, I'll say it again, unfortunately, these type of things are going to come up in conversation. So let's get into the meat here of it, the last part of it, and we'll wrap this up here about, being a parent. Like, what is it really? How do you define good or bad? What's the context behind that?
Of a person that's simply asking questions and going against the establishment who wins.
Candidate.
Okay, you get to pick and choose on how we define them. All right, let's go here. Let's define, because this is where the argument ends. Let's define a bad parent and a great parent. What is a great parent? Let's define qualities of a great parent.
Provides for the child.
So provides.
Gives them the right morals and the right lessons for life, and gives them the right path, puts God in their life puts
Some
them in the
people
right
can
schools.
debate that, but okay, what else?
I think it's some.
I thought that was interesting how, Patrick, kind of rebutted in there to say, he said to give them, talk to them about God or show them God. And he said, well, like that could be debatable. And he's a Christian guy. And I think that's interesting how he kind of, brought that out to say, well, yes, personally, I too agree, I think is what he's saying, to bring God to your children, but, that's his definition. And a lot of other people's may not be that. There's a lot of people out there that are not Christian, and they love their kids and they raise them, and they're good parents. And coming from the home that he come from, of being, total kind of independent conservative, I think his dad was, and then his mom was like real, real liberal and real left on a lot of thinking. And I'm pretty sure they were probably, of Muslim belief. And he's saying that, his parents loved him, and in their idea and what they were doing, it was the right thing to do, and not meaning that they can't love their child, and only that religiously that can't completely define, whether you love your child or not, because in their mind, people that don't worship anything, to them, they're loving their children. But for us as Christians, we want everybody to know that, we want our children to inherit the kingdom of heaven. Okay. And I just thought that was interesting. I want to point that out. Let's continue.
Someone has structure. It's someone that sets boundaries. That's someone that educates. It's someone that shows affection, but that's somebody that isn't afraid to say no.
There you go. Now it's changing, isn't it?
There you go.
Yeah.
Now it's changing, isn't it? So you just said it. Structure. You made it very eloquent argument. So structure, boundaries, somebody that shows no. You said empathy. What's the third one you said was very important? Affection. And then you said what? No. Okay, Tom, you're a parent, and you're one of the greatest parents I know. What else would you add to that?
Well, it's something Adam said a minute ago. He said, I love you so much, I don't want to say no. That's parental insecurity. They love themselves too much to risk the child's
Let's stay
rejection.
on great parent. No, let's stay on
great parents. I love you too much to say yes, and I'm unafraid of your reaction because I need to guide you through it.
Yep.
I love you too much to say yes.
That's interesting. I wanted to stop there and point that out. And if you're watching along and you want to comment down there in the section of what you think is being a good parent, that's a good topic. I love you too much to say yes. And in context, again, we can use examples. And let's say, you're in the store with your kid, and, we've all had that if you've got kids, that moment where they throw a fit for that Reese cup. Okay. And that's what they want, and of course it is. I mean, who don't like candy? I mean, hey, I like candy too. Everybody does. But as the parent, you also know that we hadn't had dinner yet, maybe, and the situations and the scenario of, like, it's just not what we need to do right now. And as in being the older one and the wiser one between you and your 5-year-old, you would know what was best. Now, letting your child choose between what socks they wear for the day, or later on when we do have a cookie after dinner, if they want chocolate chip or oatmeal, those are choices that our children can handle. But when you come down to letting your child choose their sexuality, that's not being a good parent. You're just giving in. So that's a good point. So I love you too much to say yes. Let's continue back on.
To certain things.
Okay, perfect. So now, do we want to add anything else outside of this? I thought it was very smooth how you said it. Structure, boundaries, affection. No, I love you too much to say yes. Do we want to add anything else here to the great parent?
I think you prioritize character and education.
I also think it comes down to roles of a man versus a woman,
character,
right? Like what you bring to the table is different than what Jen brings to the table. You guys are different.
Now,
and you guys are great parents, but the way that you handle things are different.
Sure. Can we now define what a terrible parent is?
Someone that's not there.
Okay.
They're never there. Financially, they're not supporting the family. Security, you're not, you know what I mean? They don't give them a place to live. You know what I mean?
I'll sum it up is that the purpose of the child is to love them.
I like that. It's so good. You got some good stuff. the purpose of the child is to love them. Your children love you, of course. I mean, your children love you unconditionally. And I don't want to compare them to a pet because that'd be, kind of facetious and be silly. But like your dog just loves you because when you come in the door, he just loves you because he loves you. And children, a mind of a child is kind of the same. You're the provider. You're the one they look to for basic skills of bathing and eating and all those kind of things. So that's very interesting. Let's continue here.
Is a bad parent is the child is there to make you feel better. That's horrible.
No guidance, Pat. No morals.
We see that everywhere. You know what I mean, Pat?
What else is a quality? Can you go up? Let's just see what psychology today say what a terrible parent is. What else would you say about a terrible parent?
Enablers.
Enablers.
You don't correct your child. You enable it, and you mollify it, and you give them ice cream to shut up.
What
rather
else?
than
At the end of the day, it's the exact opposite of what makes a good parent. That you don't have structure, you don't have discipline, you don't have
food,
affection.
Yeah.
You
stay
won't
there,
say no.
But stay there. What are signs of bad parenting? Look at that. Strict and rigid discipline is bad parenting.
Bullshit.
Okay. Strict and rigid. Okay. So
withdrawing affection and attention.
Little
shaming.
Okay. So shaming. Okay. I totally get it.
Yeah.
And now
There's different sides of the spectrum. Like on one side, little or no discipline, and the other side is rigid discipline.
He's very right. I want to go back to what he was saying. Do parents now, not now, but I mean just any time in general, why are you having children? Are you just doing it because are there more mischievous mindedness, and premarital things going on now than there was before? I don't know. There's more people population wise. So probably, you could probably say that there's probably more people in the world. So there's probably more, sexuality between unwedded people and that can lead to it. That's a problem. But, are you having children just to have children? Are you having them because you feel lonely and dark inside? And you're having them just to fill a place in your life? I'm telling you, I've been around some people. I mean, some people y'all may be kind of laughing or thinking, oh, that's silly. And also, I bet some of you are watching saying, I know somebody exactly like that. That you're just, are you just trying to fill a place in your life through drinking and drugs? And then children. And then you bring your children to a toxic environment that's already involved in drinking and drugs because of your own problems that you need to figure out, that you need to get right between you and God. And again, young people, that's why he wants you to wait till you're married, because it don't confuse your head so much when you're older and you have sex and you're with your wife, because when you have sex, you're having children. And, and when you do, you're prepared with a little more wisdom because you have a little more age and you understand what you need to do. And they're not just there to fill a place. So that's a good point. I like that point that he made on that. And then he's talking about discipline, too much left or too much right, we've all had somebody in our family, or maybe you got a cousin or brothers and sisters, and maybe you were the sibling that had to be dealt with on. You felt like you always got, the worst end of the stick, and you got the whooping all the time. You just did one little thing and you caught the whooping, you caught the belt. And then like this little sister would do whatever she wanted to, and whatever she did, it really didn't matter because she was just always going to get away with anything. So, there's a middle. And, is there a book on parenting? About 1 million of them. But the best book of all is knowing God's word. And knowing how you live your life, and you raise them in the same way of the things that you're doing, not just by what you're saying. So there is a middle. And if you're looking for me to say it's easy, I'm not. It's very hard. It brings a lot of stress to marriages, usually differences in kids and how to discipline a child brings a lot of arguments. Dads usually want to be tough. And moms usually want to be easy. Not always. Sometimes it's vice versa. It could be either way. My mom was very tough. She was very hard skinned, and she believed in discipline. Now, she didn't whoop me probably 5 times in my whole life, but there's a certain way you're supposed to live and how you're supposed to treat people and talk to people. And, there is a middle. So is it easy to find that middle? It is not. So let's continue here.
But
you
got to be amenable.
Here's the part for this woman to say, if your 7-year-old child say they this, you know what you're saying? Here's what you're saying. What you're saying is the 7-year-old child knows just as much as you about life. That's what you just said. If the child says that, the child is at an equal level of wisdom and intelligence as you at 35 years old. She looks like she's 35.
Yeah.
Is the 7 years? So then you are dumb.
Yes.
That's what you are. Because most 7-year-olds are trying to learn and they want direction. And they will say anything and everything to get attention. Now, how many videos are you seeing coming up where a kid says, my mom just wants me to be gay. If I become gay, my mom will be so happy. And the mom says, I never said that. Your mom, you always want me to be gay.
I just saw that.
That's what you do. You always say you want me to be gay. Honestly, I'm not. Yeah, I can't believe you're saying this on live. So the point is, listen, somebody has to have a brass balls to go out there and say, here's a great parent. Here's a bad parent. To all the great parents out there, we salute you because you make the world a safer place. You make communities safer. You produce people like anytime, like, for example, when I would get somebody, I said this to Sheena's mom and dad came and talked to me one time. And I looked at Sheena's mom and dad and I said, listen, I got the product. I didn't raise her for 18 years. You did. I just want to tell you, thank you. Because I got the product after you raised her. Like Grace is upstairs yesterday, sitting there working, doing her part at 14, 15 years old, 16 years old. That's a product of Paulette and Siamak raising her well. Because you know what she got out of 1600? 1560.
Yeah, he was in the military for some time here for the U.S. and he's just giving credit to his wife's time. He wasn't around, and she did a good job with a child, and it does take two to raise a child. And, sometimes when there's not, there can be challenges, and he's just kind of giving thanks to that. And I'll skip through some of that.
She got 7 goes to Bailey. Life, sometimes you need the right people in your life to kick your ass and set an expectation and standard and say, no, step it up, move up.
Yeah, he's speaking on the example there with his child. You can pet them and encourage them and tell them that they've done a good job, but sometimes you need to be able to speak to them out, enough to say, that's wrong. That's not what we do here. We're not going to handle it this way. Step it up. Step your game up. You're better than that. I raised you better than that. Okay. I expect more of you. I'm disappointed. They got to hear that stuff. You can't just continually, pet and coddle your kids constantly all the time. It's not going to help them. It's going to keep them needing to be nurtured all their life. And I'm not saying not to be caring and compassionate, and there's a line. And again, that too much discipline, or just way overboard, that wild, crazy dad just, whoops the kids every time he comes home, or, the other one side of it that, we don't get any. He's just like, well, you just, go stand over there in the corner and think about what you did. And maybe that works for some, but for me, if I got any classmates watching that knew me like from elementary, middle school, I got paddled a lot, and I needed it. Half the time, I just needed it because it's just, there's rules and stuff, and you got to figure out what's right and wrong, and somebody has to be that adult. And parents have just passed the buck too many times to pull up, and as me being a coach, and to just drop your kids off and expect the coach or teacher just to raise your children. You just drop your kids off at, Wednesday night service. We're going to talk about the Bible, and we're going to have lessons, and we're going to watch like a little video. And we're going to have discussions. And that's how I like to teach class, is by asking and getting conversation started. But I can't raise your child. I'm not with them all the time. I can point them in the right direction and hope that they can go the right way. But if they're not getting any at home, then what I'm doing is just nearly null and void. So you need that butt kicking sometimes from mom and dad. Somebody to say, hey, man, you can do better. Let's go.
Up to this level here. That's not easy. That's a lot of hard work and discipline and dedication and sacrifice from your own stuff that you're doing. No, we have to define what is a great parent and what is a bad parent. And we have to keep recognizing the great parents. When I see, yesterday, Mario brought a couple people here. One of the kids was talking to me. Hi, how are you, sir? So I love your work you do. The guy's 12 years old. I said, why are you so confident? He says, what do you mean? Mom and dad are standing right. I said, why do you talk so eloquently and confidently? It's not normal for a 12-year-old to talk like this. Well, sir, I'm a very confident young man. I said, well, I want to tell you. I said, I hope you thank your mom and dad for raising you this way, because this is not common. This is not common to be disrespectful, this confident as you're at 12. I hope when you leave this place, you say thank you to mom and dad.
Awesome.
Because without your mom and dad, you wouldn't be the way you are right now. And I looked at the parents in front of the kid and I said, I salute you. I salute you. And I thank both of you for being great parents. We ought to recognize great parents and we ought to call out bad parents because it's happening.
Yep. And that's kind of, what I wanted to talk about here. We'll get off here and I'll kind of wrap it up with this. Of all the bad that we're seeing, guys, and it's not just perfect and great everywhere we go, and it's not supposed to be. We live in a fallen creation in a world that God made perfect and beautiful with Adam and Eve and all the great animals and creatures he put here on the earth, and he made us to look after them. We failed. We failed as spiritual creatures to take over this place and to rule it and to look after it as God had wanted us. That leads us to today, 2023, where we have confusion about what gender a child is, and a legislative person going to make some kind of law to tell you that we're going to come get your kid if you don't allow them to choose their sex. That's where we're at. But let your hearts not be troubled or worried, for God is still on the throne and he's still king. Christ is Lord. And he sent his only son to die for you. And if you're not sure about where your salvation is and what you got going on with your life right now, and you're confused about your gender, or you have your children that are confused about their gender or what they got going on, pray for them. And if you're not saved and you're not sure either, then, hey, I would suggest to just think about it and to get to know God. Let him come into your life. It just makes things so much easier when you get yourself lined up. And lastly, thank you, mom and dads, to all the good parents out there. We're just not seeing enough good parents. Thank you to all the good parents out there, because all we see on the news is all the bad. It's not all bad out there, okay? God's still good. Christ is still king. Thank you for coming by the Big Matt podcast channel. All right, we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.